Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms. I can't believe I got all that smocking done in one day, but I did. I worked on it pretty much nonstop, nearly made myself go blind, but I finished. Okay, so, and now what I've done is I have left in the top two pleating rows, but I have removed all of the other pleating threads so that the dress will fan out like a bishop. And as I mentioned in one of the videos, I don't smock very tight. So I'm able to, do it the way I do it without fanning it out to smock it. Okay, so I've got my placket piece. I'm going to take the pins out real quickly. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to sew the French seam on the back of the garment and then begin to create the placket for the dress. Okay, all right, now since in my last project, I ended up with a placket that wasn't long enough, I'm going to just carefully measure the placket length one more time before I start sewing. Okay, if I match that up with that blue mark and brings it, okay, it's longer, so it's going to be just fine. Okay, all right, now I'm going to make a French seam at the back seam. So what I need to do is I need to line up the top in my two blue dots and pin that into place. Using my silk pins. Okay, this will take me a minute to get this pinned. All right, I've got that pinned. Now I have my sewing machine set for a straight stitch, and I'm going to, with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew the first pass of my French seam, tacking it at the top and also at the bottom. And then once I get this done, I'll go to the ironing board and press it to one side. But this will take me a minute to get this done. Okay, so I have been to the ironing board to press that seam to one side. I also, before I pressed it, I used my embroidery scissors and I trimmed away some of the threads that had been fraying. You know, since I was smocking on this all day yesterday, and the fabric had been handled a little bit, there were some threads hanging out, and I didn't want them to end up coming out of my second seam of my French seam. So this time I'm sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance to do my second pass of the French seam. So 1/8 and a 1/4 gives me a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, this will take me a minute to get this all sewn. Okay, I have that sewn. Now I need to go to the ironing board and press this seam to one side again. But before I did that, I notched to the top of my seam without cutting the threads. So this will take me a minute to get this pressed to one side, and then we'll begin to create the placket. Okay, I've got that pressed to one side along the back seam. Now I'm going to pull my pleating threads kind of out of the way, and I'm going to begin to pin my placket. I'm starting on the left side of the bag. And then I'll work my way around to the right side. Using lots of pins along the smocking area because it kind of wants to pucker a little bit. and I don't want to end up with puckers when I sew it. Okay, all right, this will take me a minute to get this all pinned along here. Okay, I've got that all pinned. Now I'm going to sew from the inside of the garment. So let me turn this inside out. Okay, and I'm going to start on the side where the placket is going to eventually be folded under. And looks like I have about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance that I need to maintain in order to match up with the French seam along the back opening. So this will take me a minute to get this sewn. Okay, so I've got that all sewn, but before I go to the ironing board and press it towards the placket side, I'm going to trim this to about 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch, I think. Using my fabric scissors. And come up the other side. There we go. Okay, now I'll go to the ironing board and I'll press that seam towards the placket, and then I'll also be folding the placket over by about 1/4 of an inch so that I can turn it in and create a little placket. So this will take me a minute to do at the ironing board. Okay, I've got that pressed. Now I'm going to fold this back till the fold line matches up with the seam. And then I'm going to pin that into place, and then I'll come back and use some tiny little stitches. I will whip stitch this placket into place. Okay, this will take me a minute to get this all pinned. Okay, I've got that all pinned in place. Now, using whatever is your favorite stitch to whip something into place, let's begin to whip stitch or, blind stitch, whatever you want to do. Tack that placket into place all along the length. Now, I'm starting on the right, but if you're left-handed, you might want to start on the left. Getting a knot in here. Oh no. Okay, give me a minute to get that knot out. Okay, that was not a hopeless knot. It just took a little bit of doing to get it out. I'll pull the thread a little bit slower from here on out. Okay, so this will take me a minute to get this tacked all the way along this placket from one side to the other. I've got that all tacked down, and I've been to the ironing board and given it just a quick little press. Now down here at the bottom of the placket on the inside, I'm going to tack this into place with a little diagonal line of stitches, and that helps to hold the placket inside the garment so it won't flip and come outside of the dress. There we go. Just sew back and forth with a few little stitches. Okay, now let me turn my dress back right side out. Oh, those little bees are just so cute, aren't they? I think this is one of my favorite smocking plates. Okay, so as I'm looking at the back of the dress, okay, I'm going to want the placket to, fan out on the left side of the dress, but on the right side where I'm going to be making the buttonholes, I'm going to want it to be pressed to the inside. So in the next step, we'll be adding the neckband, but just to remind myself that that placket needs to stay on the inside, I'm going to put a couple of pins in here just so that I don't accidentally forget and leave that out. Okay, now that does leave just a little bit of unsmocked area in the back for the buttons and the buttonholes, but you know, that's okay. That's just the way I've always done these dresses. I know some people like to have the smocking all the way to the end, and I'm not quite sure how they do the buttonholes, but that, you know, was a topic for a different day. But sewing the back seam, the front seam today, and creating the placket is what we were doing. So thank you.